I never imagined that failing one class could change my life forever. Professor David wasn't just my instructor. He became something I couldn't resist, something I wasn't supposed to want. When he offered to help me catch up after hours, I thought it was my last chance to pass. But what started as tutoring quickly turned into secret meetings I couldn't escape from. His touch, his gaze, the way he whispered my name, it felt like a forbidden fire consuming me from inside. Then everything exploded. Someone found out. Rumors spread like wildfire. The administration got involved. My life spiraled out of control. And the man I trusted, he vanished when I needed him the most. This is my story, raw, painful, and real. The truth they don't want you to hear about power, betrayal, and survival. Watch as I reveal how a college class became the darkest chapter of my life, and how I fought back from the edge. I've never been great at pretending. Not when I'm lost, not when I'm failing, and definitely not when I feel like the walls are closing in. Professor Adams' class was my breaking point. Advanced Statistical Theory. The very title made my stomach twist. From day one, it was a battlefield. Equations that looked like riddles, lectures that flew right over my head, and a man at the front of the room who seemed untouchable. Impeccably dressed, never raising his voice, and always 5 steps ahead. Professor David Adams. 40, maybe 41, though he looked younger. Sharp eyes, calm demeanor, and a voice so smooth it could convince you anything made sense, except when I was the one listening. Week after week, I slipped further behind. I'd reread the same sentence in the textbook 5 times and still not understand it. And every time he handed back our tests, my stomach dropped lower. I hated the sinking feeling of being the one who couldn't keep up. The day he asked me to stay after class, I panicked. I thought it was the final nail, that he'd recommend I drop the course. My knee bounced under the desk while the last of the students packed up. Their voices echoed in the hallway as the door finally clicked shut. He didn't look at me right away, just moved about the room quietly, stacking papers, shutting his laptop, sipping from a stainless steel thermos. The silence stretched until I couldn't take it anymore. Professor. He glanced up. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze didn't waver. William. That was all he said. My name. But the way it sounded in his voice, lower, measured, sent a strange chill through me. He walked around the desk, his shoes clicking softly against the tile floor, and perched on the edge, arms crossed, watching me. You're falling behind, he said, and not just a little. I swallowed hard. I know. He raised a brow. I've seen you in class. You're present but not engaged. There's a difference. I shifted in my seat. It's not that I don't care. I don't know. I've never been good at this stuff. It's not about being good. It's about doing the work. He studied me for a second longer, then exhaled softly. But I don't think your issue is intelligence. I looked up surprised. It's not. No, he said simply. I think your issue is attention. Focus. Maybe even motivation. His words lingered in the air like smoke. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. I just stared at him, heart racing, while he tilted his head slightly. I've offered help before, he continued, more gently. But you never took me up on it. I blinked. I didn't think it was still an option. It is, he said. But this time, I want you to take it seriously. One-on-one sessions. After hours. My office. Twice a week. My throat went dry. Really? You do that? He shrugged, almost amused. I don't offer unless I mean it. I nodded too quickly. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. His lips twitched, almost a smile. We'll see how thankful you are when you're knee-deep in formulas. That was how it started. The first session was awkward. He sat behind his desk, I sat across from him, and we worked through problems I didn't understand. He was patient, more than I expected. He explained things differently than he did in class. Slower, with metaphors. He noticed when I got overwhelmed and let me pause, even joke. I began to see glimpses of the man beyond the lectures. By the third session, something shifted. It was in a way he leaned closer when checking my work. How he reached past me, his hand brushing my arm. The subtle warmth in his tone when I finally got something right. And I noticed things I hadn't before. The way his sleeves were always rolled up, exposing strong forearms, the slight silver in his hair, the way he sometimes looked at me too long. like he was searching for something. One evening, we stayed later than usual. The campus was nearly deserted. The hallway outside his office was dark, lit only by a flickering exit sign. Inside, his desk lamp cast a warm glow across the room, shadows dancing on the walls. We were sitting close, maybe too close, as he went over my mock exam. "You're improving," he said, voice low, "but you're still making the same mistakes when you second-guess yourself." I groaned. "I always second-guess myself. It's like a curse." "You need to trust your instincts more," he said, and his hand landed softly on my shoulder. "You're better than you think." That touch, brief, casual on the surface, sent electricity through my entire body. I turned to look at him, and he didn't pull away. His hand stayed. His eyes met mine, and it was a beat. A long, heavy, silent beat that stretched too far. Everything in me screamed to break the silence, to speak, to move. But I didn't. Neither did he. The air between us was thick with something unnamed. Forbidden, but not unfamiliar. "I should go," I murmured, barely recognizing my own voice. "You could," he said slowly, "or we could talk." "About what?" He smiled, slow, almost sad. "About why you haven't looked away since I touched you." I couldn't answer. My breath hitched, and I was frozen in place, heart hammering in my chest. Something inside me, the part that always played it safe, was screaming to get up, grab my bag, leave. But I didn't move. I stayed. And in that moment, I knew whatever this was, wherever it was heading, it had already begun. The next few days felt different. Everything did. I went to class like normal, sat in my usual spot, took notes I barely looked at, but something had shifted. My skin was more aware of every glance, every brush of wind, every second his eyes lingered on me across the lecture hall. And he was watching me. Not all the time, but enough that I noticed. Enough to make my breath catch when our gazes met, and he didn't look away. After class, he said nothing, just a faint nod as he gathered his materials and walked past me like he wasn't the man who, 2 nights ago, told me I hadn't looked away. I didn't know if we had crossed the line, or if we'd only stood at the edge, staring into it. But the next session was scheduled. I almost didn't show. Almost. I stood outside his office for what felt like hours, heart in my throat, hand hovering near the door handle. I could have walked away, pretended I was sick, pretended it never happened. Instead, I knocked. "Come in," came his voice, calm, composed, just like always. I stepped inside. He was standing by the window, sunset light casting gold across the floor and making his shirt glow faintly at the collar. He didn't speak at first, just looked at me, really looked at me, like I was something he couldn't quite define. "You came," he finally said. "Yeah. You weren't going to." "No." A pause. The silence between us crackled, alive with everything we weren't saying. "You don't have to be here if it makes you uncomfortable," he said. "It does," I said honestly, "but not in the way you think." His brow furrowed slightly. "How then?" I took a breath, trying to find the words. "It's not confusion. It's not regret. It's wanting something you probably shouldn't, and knowing you feel it too." He didn't answer right away. Just turned toward his desk, picked up a pen, put it back down. I wondered if he'd tell me to leave. If he'd say this was a mistake. If he'd pretend like nothing had happened. Instead, he stepped closer. "William," he said, and my name felt like a whisper made of static. "I've spent years building boundaries I never thought I'd question." I didn't move. "But you," he exhaled. "You make it hard to remember why they were there in the first place." He was closer now. I could smell the faint scent of cedar and clean cotton on him. His fingertips brushed my arm, feather-light like testing a current. My breath hitched, and then I felt it, his hand on my jaw, slow, uncertain. He wasn't rushing. He was asking, wordlessly, waiting for me to say now. But I didn't. Our foreheads touched first, a pause, a quiet surrender, before his lips finally met mine. Gentle, careful, like he was still giving me a way out. But I didn't want out. I kissed him back, and the moment unraveled. Time blurred. Logic drowned beneath heat and hunger. His hands on my waist, mine in his hair, the edge of his desk against the backs of my legs. His mouth trailing along my jaw, my throat. Words were forgotten. Breath became the only language. I didn't think. I didn't care. I just let it happen. And afterward, In the stillness, with my shirt half-buttoned and his tie draped over the chair, I lay on the couch in the corner of his office, heartbeat finally slowing. He sat nearby, rubbing the back of his neck, eyes heavy but quiet. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, but didn't look at him. "Are you?" He didn't answer at first. Then, "I shouldn't have let that happen." I flinched. "Do you regret it?" Another long pause. "No," he said, "but I know I will." That night, I walked home alone under cold streetlights, my skin still humming from his touch. And in my chest, something unfamiliar bloomed. Not joy, not shame, just the beginning of a secret I knew would grow too big to hide. Weeks passed, and somehow we kept the secret. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, I found myself back in his office. At first, we kept up the act, books open, pens in hand, math problems between us. But the space between numbers always closed. One lingering touch, one glance too long, one locked door, and then the textbook would slide to the floor, and his lips would find mine like they never left. We never talked about what we were doing. Maybe we didn't know how. Maybe neither of us wanted to break the spell. But during the day in class, everything tightened. He avoided eye contact. I started flinching at every hallway noise. And the worst part, the part one never said out loud, was that I hated being invisible again. I hated sitting 3 rows back and watching him talk like I wasn't there. I hated pretending I was just another face in the crowd. And I hated myself for wanting more. One afternoon, after lecture, I lingered behind, just enough to be the last one out. He was packing up, as usual. Calm, composed. "Hey," I said. He didn't look up. "Hey, you free tonight?" I thought we said Thursdays. I hesitated. "I just wanted to see you." That made him pause. Finally, he looked at me, his expression unreadable. "William, we have to be careful." "I am careful," I said too quickly. He set his bag down and exhaled. "It's not just about sneaking around. It's about you. What this could do to your life, your reputation, your future. What about yours?" He didn't answer, just glanced at the open door, then back at me. "Close it," he said quietly. I did. He stepped forward, close enough that I felt the pull again, the magnetic gravity that always existed between us. "I care about you," he said, voice low. "But we can't let this become reckless." I nodded. "Then stop looking at me like that." His jaw clenched. "Like what?" "Like you're memorizing me." That silenced him. Later that night, in his office, he was different. Resser, quieter, like something inside him was breaking, but he didn't want me to see it. When I left, I found myself shaking. From adrenaline. From something deeper. Something I couldn't name. That was the first time I noticed the girl outside the building. Maybe 20, dark hoodie, leaning against the wall with her phone in hand. She didn't look at me. Not directly. But something in her posture made my skin crawl. And the next day, in class, when I turned to glance behind me, she was there. Watching. Not blinking. The cold realization sank in slowly. Someone knew. Or at least someone suspected. I started walking faster between classes, sitting further from the windows, looking over my shoulder in hallways. I even avoided his gaze during lectures, afraid my eyes would say too much. But it didn't stop me. That night, I went back to his office. I think someone saw me leave. I whispered, breath shallow. He stiffened. "Ew, a girl. Short brown hair. Putty. I don't know her name." He ran a hand through his hair, swore under his breath. "We need to pause. Just for now." I froze. "What?" "Just a week. 2 max. Let things cool down. You can't keep showing up like this." "So that's it?" I asked. "We pretend it didn't happen." "No," he said, and his voice cracked. "We pretend it matters enough not to ruin both of us." That silence again. Heavy. Final. I walked out that night into a cold wind, my hands shaking in my pockets. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a risk, and it was starting to burn. The thing about secrets is they don't stay quiet forever. By the end of that week, I could feel it. In the hallways. In the way people looked at me, too quickly, then away. Like I was wearing something they couldn't name, but still was wrong. Someone had started talking. I didn't know who. I didn't know what exactly was being said. But the shift was real. Guys I used to sit with in the cafeteria started choosing different tables. One girl I barely knew snorted when I passed her in the library and whispered something behind her hand. Even my roommate asked, half joking, "You hooking up with a professor or what?" I laughed it off, but inside I was unraveling. I hadn't seen David since the night he told me we should pause. A weekend passed. No texts, no looks, not even the usual nod across the lecture hall. It was like he'd erased me. And the thing that scared me most? How much I missed him. It wasn't just the nights or the touches or the breathless minutes on his office couch. It was the quiet of him, his voice when it softened just for me, the way he made the world fade for a little while. And now all I felt was exposed. Vulnerable. Alone. I stayed late on campus one night, too wired to go home. I wandered past his office twice, maybe 3 times, hoping he'd be there. He wasn't. The fourth time, I saw a light under the door. My heart started pounding. I hesitated, then knocked. Silence. Then, "Come in." He was at his desk, stacks of papers around him, glasses on, shirt sleeves rolled up. For a second, he looked exactly like I remembered. He didn't smile. Didn't stand. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I needed to see you." His jaw clenched. "I told you, we need space." "Is that all you want now?" "Space." He looked down, then back at me. "It's not about what I want, William. It's about what's smart." I took a slow breath. "Are you scared?" He didn't answer. "I think someone told," I said. "I can feel it. The way people look at me. They know something." "Then we have to stop," he said, voice tight. Completely. That hurt more than I expected. I stepped closer. "So what? You get to act like nothing happened? Like none of it mattered?" His hands curled into fists on the desk. "Of course it mattered." "Then say it." "William." "No," I cut him off. "You don't get to shut me out and pretend you're the only one hurting. I walk around feeling like I'm drowning, and all I wanted was to see your face." He stood then too fast. His chair scraped the floor. "You were close." Too close again. His breath hitched. His eyes searched mine like he wanted to take it all back, or do it all over. But instead, he stepped away. "This can't happen anymore," he said. "We pushed too far." I stared at him, swallowing the ache in my throat. "Then tell me you never felt anything." Silence. "Tell me it was just tutoring." More silence. He looked down, and that was my answer. I left before he could stop me. The floor I broke. Outside, the night was thick and loud with the sound of my heart in my ears. And when I got back to the dorms, I found a message waiting for me in my inbox. Anonymous tip. "You and Professor Adams make a cute couple. Wonder what the dean will think." I stared at the screen. My breath caught somewhere between panic and disbelief. The secret wasn't just slipping anymore. It was falling, fast and loud, and there was no way to stop it now. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the glow of my laptop, rereading the message over and over. Every time I blinked, the words were still there. "You and Professor Adams make a cute couple. Wonder what the dean will think." My chest was tight. My throat burned. My mind played out every worst-case scenario like a movie I couldn't shut off. Expulsion, interrogation, public shame. My parents. His career. I wanted to believe it was just a bluff. A cruel joke from someone who heard a rumor. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't just gossip anymore. This was a threat. By morning, I looked like a ghost. Pale, hollow-eyed, barely there. I skipped class. I ignored texts. I couldn't focus on anything except the sick twist in my stomach. Around noon, I got another email. Subject: "Please come to my office today at 4 p.m. Plov dia downs." That was all it said. I stared at it for a full minute, pulse pounding in my ears. He never emailed me like that. It was too formal, too final. At 3:57, I stood outside his office door, every part of me trembling. When I walked in, he was already standing. The blinds were closed. His desk was completely cleared. He didn't sit. He looked like I felt wrecked. "We've been reported," he said. No small talk. No softening the blow. Just the truth, straight to the gut. I swallowed hard. "By who?" He shook his head. "Doesn't matter." The dean received an anonymous message. Said they had reason to believe I was engaging in inappropriate contact with a student. I dropped into the nearest chair, legs giving out beneath me. "Did they say my name?" He hesitated. "No, but they don't have to. All it takes is one more detail. One more person talking." I cover my face with my hands. "This is my fault." "No, he said sharply. Don't do that. I should have stayed away. You told me to, and I didn't. Stop. His voice cracked. He didn't do anything wrong. Neither of us did. I looked up at him, and he looked like he hadn't slept either. His tie was loosened, collar wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. Do you think I'll investigate? He nodded slowly. They already started. My stomach twisted. So what happens now? He took a long breath, ran a hand through his hair. They're going to review every communication we've had. Classwork, office logs, security footage if they need to. Jesus. And if anything comes up, even something small, they'll call you in. A heavy silence settled between us. Not the electric kind we used to have. Not the breathless kind before a kiss. This was the silence of things breaking. I didn't mean for this to happen, I whispered. I know. I didn't think we'd get caught. I know. He leaned back against the desk, eyes closing for a second like he could disappear into the dark behind his eyelids. I think you should get ahead of it, he said quietly. I frowned. What do you mean? Withdraw from the class. Say it's academic pressure, but it's personal. No one will question it. My mouth went dry. That's it? You wanted to walk away. I want you to survive this, he said. And if that means letting me take the heat, I will. I stared at him, and I hated how noble he sounded, like he'd already decided to burn alone. I don't want to lose you, I said, voice cracking. You never had me, he replied gently. Not in the way you deserve. Those words shattered something in me. I stood up slowly, grabbed my bag with them hands. He didn't stop me, didn't reach out, just watched. I opened the door, and there, standing halfway down the hallway, was the girl in the hoodie. Her eyes met mine, and she smiled. The email arrived at 8:03 a.m. Subject: Academic Review Request. Attendance required. It felt like someone had poured ice water down my spine. I didn't even need to read the full message. I already knew. The review committee had questions, and I was now officially part of the matter under investigation. I sat on my dorm bed staring at the screen, fists clenched in the blanket. My roommate said something behind me, but it didn't register. All I heard was the rush of blood in my ears. All I saw was his face, David's face, the way he looked when he said you never had me. I didn't reply to the email. I didn't need to. It was mandatory. The conference room was colder than I imagined. Sterile, bright, a single long table with 3 faculty members on one side and an empty chair for me on the other. I sat down slowly, heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. The man in the middle, a senior administrator with reading glasses, folded his hands and looked at me like I was a case file, not a person. William, he began, you're not in trouble. This is an informal conversation. We're simply gathering context, right? Context. As you may know, a concern has been raised about Professor Adams and potential misconduct. I nodded slowly. We'd like to ask you a few questions, and your answers will remain confidential, unless further action is required. I hated how clinical his voice sounded. Like this was just paperwork. Like this wasn't my life. How would you describe your relationship with Professor Adams? He asked. I swallowed. He was my instructor for one course. Did you ever meet with him outside of class? I hesitated. Yes, for tutoring. He offered extra help after hours. Was this tutoring offered to other students? Don't know, I said. The woman beside him scribbled something down. I saw the pen scratch across the paper and felt my stomach twist. Did anything personal happen between you during those sessions? My mouth went dry. You always think you'll know what to say, that you'll lie if you have to, that you'll protect the person you care about. But when the moment comes, when 3 adults in suits are staring at you like you're something to be dissected, your brain turns to static. I don't think I want to answer that, I said finally. The room fell quiet, the kind of quiet that lasts too long. That's your right, the man said, adjusting his glasses. But we'll be continuing our inquiry. They let me go after 10 more minutes. I didn't remember what else they asked. I barely remember how I got back to my dorm. I collapsed onto my bed and stared at the ceiling, numb. Everything inside me felt hollow, like someone had scooped out all the color and left me gray. That evening, my phone buzzed. David, I heard they called you in. Are you okay? I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, Me, you should have been the one in that chair. Not me. He didn't reply. In that silence, After everything, broke something I didn't know was still whole. Days passed. The whispers got louder. People didn't avoid me anymore. They stared. In a cafeteria, in halls. Some laughed behind their hands. Others just watched. I became the rumor. The boy who slept with a professor. The freak. The joke. I didn't go to class. I didn't eat. I barely spoke. Until one afternoon, as I walked past the main building, I saw him. David. He was standing with another professor, talking like nothing had happened. No shadows in his eyes. No blood on his hands. Just like normal. And something in me snapped. I marched straight up to him, not caring who saw. He turned, startled. William. No, Isha. You don't get to act like this didn't destroy me. He glanced around. Not here. Yes, here. I said, loud enough for people to hear. You told me I mattered. Then left me to drown while you kept your job. Your name. Your respect. His face paled. He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. Don't ever text me again, I said. Don't ever look at me again. Then I walked away. My legs were shaking. My throat burned. But I walked. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could still choose something, even if it was only to walk away. It's strange how something can wreck your whole world, and the world just keeps spinning. Classes didn't stop when they questioned me. Emails didn't stop when my name became a joke. The sun still rose. People still laughed in the quad. No one knew that I was breaking apart inside. Or worse, they didn't care. And yet, I survived. Barely. There were days I stayed in bed. Days I deleted every text I got. Nights I stared at the ceiling wondering what it would feel like to just disappear. To never have kissed him. Never have trusted him. Never have walked into that office. But something in me refused to vanish. One morning, I got up and went to the dean's office myself. I'm dropping the course, I said. The secretary blinked at me. Reason? Because I've finally learned something, I replied. And it wasn't on the syllabus. I walked out of there with my shoulders square for the first time in weeks. And then I did something harder. I called my parents. Told them I was overwhelmed. Burned out.